regions like Asia Pacific or North America or even Latin America, then probably you still have got a degree of fragmentation. I think what you will start to see, and has already happened, is that you'll see, big multinational, whether it be FMCG players or automotive players or, other categories. I think, what you are seeing is clients trying to consolidate this activity within perhaps 1, 2, max 3 providers. Obviously, to put all your eggs in one basket doesn't give you any leverage in terms of cost. But then when you go beyond 3, then you start to fragment the picture again. So then you're not really getting the cost savings or the efficiencies that you might need. I think it's to do with maturity. So I would argue that those clients who are further along the evolution curve in terms of outsourcing do actually, as I said, tend to do that with just a kind of few providers, often with global scale, global reach, and the kind of technology and capability that I talked about. Those who are in the early stages of outsourcing this kind of work are probably testing a few providers before they decide which one then to focus on. Yes, there are still some independents and some smaller companies out there. And actually, I would argue the better that technology gets in terms of, enabling companies to do this kind of work, the easier it is going to be for, smaller independent practitioners of outsourcing to keep going and to survive. Because I think technology is just getting smarter in terms of being able to manage these kind of processes, potentially automation to a degree built into some of this technology these days. Over time, I would imagine there'll be some, even some AI built into some of these platforms as well. And if you've got a sort of translation or a transcreation tool built into some of these technologies as well, then frankly, over time, it might be that you can, run a business like this out of one location and actually deliver a global service. But we're not there yet. So I guess to me, if technology advances quickly enough, you might continue to see a more fragmented landscape. If technology reaches the glass ceiling, then I think at some point you'll see more consolidation into fewer players.
Okay, very interesting. And if so you mentioned two things actually that are first in terms of the main leaders. What do you think would be the clear leaders in EMEA, which I understand in the market you know the best?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a few at the beginning. Obviously, Tag Williams-Lee or Williams-Lee Tag is still a big player, despite obviously some of the changes that have been going on there recently. Hogarth, obviously part of WPP, is definitely a big player. Prodigious, which is part of the Publicis network, is another big player. And you've got Kraft.
Sorry, I did not get the name.
Which one? The Publicis one?
The third one you mentioned after WLT and Hogarth.
Yeah, so you got WLT, Hogarth, and you've got Prodigious, which is part of the Publicis network.
Okay.
Prodigious, yeah. So it's part of Publicis. Then you've got Kraft, KRFT, which is part of the Interpublic network.
But
then
not really independent players, basically. They're all either part of an ad agency or larger group, or.
Yeah, a lot of those are, and I think again, what I think you've seen over the last few years is, I think when this sort of process started and things started to change, I think a lot of clients were keen to shift the work completely out of holding companies to gain the transparency that they needed. Whereas now, I think probably over the last 5 years or so, because holding companies realize that they will continue to lose revenue in this space unless they are completely transparent with their creative production capabilities, I think a lot of clients feel now that they will probably get equal transparency and equal cost competitiveness with a holding company version of these kind of services versus